really with our solventless line, we just want it to be as clean as possible. Like nothing touched it but ice cubes and water.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the James Loud Podcast. And today my special guest is Nate from Jetty. How are you doing today, Nate?
I'm doing great, James. How are you?
Fantastic, man. I'm glad to have you here at the facility. We gave you a nice little tour of kind of what we're doing. We're kind of really getting ready for production here in a few weeks.
Bro, this place is sick. Kudos to you and your team for pulling this off, man. And the build out's beautiful. The facility's awesome. So
great, man.
Stoked to see what you guys do here.
Yeah. So we go back a few years, like 4 or 5 years, and you guys have been doing extract for quite a while.
10 years, our 10-year anniversary is Jetty. So 10 years we've been doing extracts, and we started way back in the 215 days. And, you know, we started doing CO2. And the reason we started with CO2, even though it's not like the best extract method, we just saw a lot of people getting charges, getting hemmed up because everybody's open blasting and, you know, tons of butane canisters everywhere dumped on the side of the road. And just, we thought it was a cleaner, safer method of extraction. You know, fast forward, we learned a lot about terpene preservation in the extraction process. So, you know, from there, you know, evolved to ethanol and distillate and, you know, live resin and hydrocarbons. And, you know, now it's full circle back to rosin and solventless and washing hash like we were, you know, 15 years ago. So
pretty amazing. I think the industry's come a long way since using straightening irons to make their rosin.
Yeah, that was certainly some rudimentary tech, but, you know, it got us where we are today. So
totally, it's amazing. And then coming back from bubble hash, you know, in the 90s to seeing where bubble hash has turned, you know, it's turned into rosin today, and now these rosin carts, you know, it's pretty amazing that you can put rosin in a cart and smoke it.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, back in the day, it was, you know, before like the extract craze really hit. And you know, I had a dispensary in San Diego in like 2009, 10, and our concentrate shelf was tiny. And the only things we had was, you know, it was full melt, 3/4 melt. It was all just different bubbles and caviars and sifts and things like that. And just seeing the whole evolution to where it is today. I mean, we couldn't even smoke it dabbing. Like we didn't know how to even smoke oil when it first came on the scene, you know?
Seriously, we were like putting it in joints, smoking it on coal. There was all kinds of, you know.
Yeah. I mean, all sorts of ways. And then the swing arms and the bells and all those funky devices came along.
And the big, huge, we were talking this a couple of podcasts ago, but the giant dab rigs. Yeah. Now we have small, you know, portable electronic ones that you don't have to, you know, use a big torch to light up.
Yeah. The whole scene's come a long way. And, you know, the tech has obviously evolved immensely as well. So it's been pretty cool to witness and be a part of.
Yeah. It's wild. Yeah. It's wild. And it's even more crazy. The future, I think it's starting to stabilize a little bit, but there's a lot of potential for the future. Yeah,
there is. I mean, it's, you know, this space and this industry is always full of innovators and people thinking like how to preserve and more terpenes, how to get a different cannabinoid ratio out. So, you know, we're going to see some cool stuff in the future for sure.
Totally. So let's go from the future to the past, and we'll talk about your origin story, how you got into the industry. When did you start smoking?
You know, teenage years, 14, 15, probably started smoking. I grew up in upstate New York in Buffalo. And, you know, this is, you know, before we really got like the Beast or BC bud kind of, that was a big thing. And like later on in my years, but when I first started smoking, it was like Mexi swag weed, you know, seeds and stems, brown, gnarly stuff.
Brown or green.
Yeah.
Not a lot of options.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and there was options as far as green, but a lot of it didn't even have names.
Yeah.
Or they called it strawberry because of the shape of it, or, you know, whatever.
When we first saw like good no seed weed, I would say like, it was kind bud. That's what people called it where I was from. Like, oh, you got kind bud or swag, you know, there's no other option.
Right. Yeah. The brown bud was interesting. You know, it would definitely get you really high, give you a headache too.
Yeah. It was pretty funky. I mean, imagine having some of that stuff now and putting it through some testing regimen and see what was in it. It'd be pretty gnarly, I'm sure.
Seriously. Well, it's hard to say. You know, the pesticides were different back then.
That's true. That's
true.
Know,
I think they were real limited with pesticides, and they probably used a heavy concentration of whatever they had.
Yeah.
Or they just didn't give a shit. You know, so
I'm pretty sure I saw some weed a few times that was like, people are like, oh, look at the crystals, but it's just mold, man.
Lots of mold, heavy mold.
Yeah,
for sure. PM back in the day, before a lot of people knew what PM was, they were like, oh yeah, it's extra crystals.
Exactly.
So when was the first time you saw hash?
Hash, I would say, you know, I saw it growing up. Like upstate New York, it was really hard to get. But the first time I went to Amsterdam was when I saw like good hash and variety of it. And that was probably like late 90s, 2000, right around there.
Wow.
Um,
Nice.
Did a trip out there, and like, you know, the bud was impressive, but the hash at that time, I think, was like really what blew me away.
I was never a big fan of Amsterdam weed, except for the California stuff or American stuff over there. But like definitely the hash was on a whole nother level.
Yeah. I think you guys brought a lot of game to Amsterdam. All you guys that went over there back in the day.
For sure. Genetics wise and everything. I mean, I think the good genetics really originated here. And then, you know, they had their run with the seeds and with the genetics. And, you know, I think to a degree, they started doing stuff at scale long before they did in the States, as far as, you know, seed companies, especially.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and pushing the envelope with stuff. And
yeah. I mean, no doubt they've had, you know, a lot of influence on where we are today. But yeah, I think that's kind of, no offense to anybody out there in Amsterdam, but you know, I think we've always had them beat on flower for sure.
Yeah. And quality flower. I feel like we've really had like that. And just, I feel like, you know, in certain places of the world, there's things where, you know, they originate. Like, I feel like California is the epicenter for quality cannabis, for new genetics. I feel like a lot of it's, you know, and not that it's not coming from other places too, but I feel like the starting point, a lot of it has come from Northern California.
Yeah. It's the building blocks of it all, man, for sure.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So, and there's a lot of passionate people. You know, I give a lot of credit to the Grateful Dead being here, and kind of the, you know, I feel like there's some connection to the Grateful Dead with everybody that's been around here long enough. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was just talking about that with my friend the other night, and exactly like that. That was a foundation, and really like touring and all that stuff really spread a lot of the varieties all around the country, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And even bubble hash in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
I really like the 90s bubble hash. I mean, it was even before bubble bags. I think people were using, like, we did silk screens, and we were drying them on the screen before we'd scrape it off the screen. You know? And hand stir for 15 minutes one direction, and then you know, they had a recipe that you'd follow, and it worked good.
It was amazing. Like when I, you know, because I was like, fast forward a couple of years from like when I first started smoking, but I was living in Utah, and we were selling cannabis, and you know, a lot of the Cali guys would bring packs over to Utah, and you know, it was great. And you know, we had a very limited market. We had really good weed, and they just couldn't get rid of the bubble hash. So it'd always be like, if you sell these couple of P's for me, I'll give you a quarter pound of bubble hash. And to me, I was like, yeah, like totally, I want the hash. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was interesting, like just how people used to do it back in the day, just from trim and just get rid of it. And it wasn't as valued as high. For sure. There was a point where trim was free. Like you would get trim for free. And a lot of us we'd trim wet. And so trimming wet, you get you know, you get a lot of sugar leaf too. You know, some of the stuff we just mix it all in together, but like that's how we get great fresh frozen, because we trim wet and then we just throw it right in the freezer. Yep. We make bubble hash from that. That stuff was amazing. I remember getting some amazing hues of bubble hash, you know, where you have like the orange colored bubble hash that was just from purple weed or whatever. Yeah, the really nice blondes too, like the sour always made that really nice blonde bubble hash. Yeah, and long before we had freezers, the harvest rights to, you know, get blonde hash, you know, we were getting some good blonde bubble, you know, keef and bubble hash that was just pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, love those days, and just kind of the old stories, and people taking Maytag washing machines and hooking them up and trying to get frickin', you know, it automated and not hand paddle, and 5-gallon bucket. I mean, I started with 5-gallon Home Depot buckets, you know. Totally. What I mean? So, 5-gallon. Same thing with the bubble bags too, with the 5-gallon bucket with the bubble bag sets. And I didn't like using all 7 bags or whatever. Yeah. I mean, so, it was a lot of work to pull all those bags for, you know, not that much reward, but yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a point where we had a bunch of bags we had a big tree in my backyard, and we had 5 bags set up at one point. Yeah. Where we are, or five buckets where we were pulling, and you could actually tie it off so it would drip, because like lifting a heavy bag, it's like just wears on your back. I'm too old for that shit now. Yeah. It's a lot of work, dude. Yeah. We always say it's a young man's job. Even like with the fancy automated washers we have now these days, it's still, you know, there's big bags, a lot of water in those bags, and just sifting through it. It's just, So you guys are still manually doing some of it? Yeah. There's a lot of, like kind of the sifting of the bags and things like that, getting the water to drain, all that stuff's done manually. So, you know, when you got, you know, 5 gallons of water in a bag, it's heavy. And, it's heavy. you know, just cleaning out the machines. You know, we're doing, you know, 15-pound runs and things like that, and 15 pounds of wet soaked cannabis with
Well,
ice
35 pounds doesn't seem like that much weight, but try shaking 35 pounds up and down for a while, and then like doing it again, and 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later. And
I'm the same, man. I'm an old guy. It's hard work for me, but yeah, the young guys in there are just, they're stoked to do it, and they're all, they're all feeling good too.
Yeah. And to a degree, some of this stuff, I feel like it's still considered innovative. I feel like we're still, you know, I mean, especially with the automated systems that they're doing today where you can do it at scale, because that's a long, that's a lot further from the 5-gallon bucket. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of it. Like I said, like it's still pretty labor intensive. It's, you know, as far as like our solventless department, it's our biggest team for, you know, minimal throughput compared to hydrocarbon or ethanol extraction or something like that. So, you know, the manpower it takes to produce, you know, a kilo of live rosin versus a kilo of, you know, live resin is drastically different. So you guys are still doing live resin? Yeah, we do. Nice. You know, it's not a huge category for us, but, you know, we do it. And, you know, the one good thing about it is like the strain variety. You can basically put any fresh frozen, you know, in a butane extractor, and you're going to get a good product out as long as it's good coming in. Where the solventless genetics, you know, the rosin genetics are a little bit harder to find the ones that hit. Genetics play a huge role. Yeah. You know, in yield especially. Yeah. Yield is, you know, it's hard because the consumer they don't want to pay $100 a gram for certain things. And, and you can't charge them more necessarily for stuff that doesn't yield as much. Yeah, they don't see that. You know, it's hard to do that. There's a few brands that have pulled that off, but it's a tough thing to do. And ultimately you're just seeing, you know, when you look at the data, it's unfortunate, but, you know, the more price conscious brands and value products are what's kind of pulling off the shelves these days, especially with the recession and all that stuff, you know? Yeah. People don't have as much money anymore, and some are willing to sacrifice quality for quantity. Yeah. Yeah. I'd say the majority of the consumers are like that, unfortunately. So yeah, we're just really trying to, you know, a big focus for us with the solventless play is getting, you know, stuff that hits at least 4% to wash. And if we can do that, we can keep our price point like somewhat competitive with everybody else. So what's your opinion on live resin versus live rosin? I've seen COAs comparing the two where you actually get more terpenes. Obviously water soluble terpenes get lost in the mix when you're washing. But what's your opinion on the whole thing? Yeah, man. I mean, you know, I'm not like religiously, you know, one way or the other. I want a good product at the end of the day. I want something that tastes good. There's certain profiles and certain strains that I think come out great with hydrocarbon. We just won Emerald Cup for first place for our Super Lemon Haze, which is a classic strain. Well, that would never come out in the wash. We would never be able to like taste that strain that way if we didn't run it through hydrocarbon. So, you know, just having the optionality to do both, I think is good, and just kind of doing the plant justice. And, you know, again, it's like, as long as you're doing it right, it's purged right, it's clean, it's safe at the end of the day. You know, I really have no problem with it, but tastes amazing. Yeah. That's my opinion. It tastes amazing. That's what it's all about, dude. Put a blindfold on and like what tastes good, and you know, it's clean, you know, it's good. But that said, I don't know, there's just something I think even in the analytics, like what we're seeing, you know, they're only testing for 40 something terpenes these days. They're not testing for flavonoids, esters, any other, you know, aromatic compound. Yeah. Like so I think there's like, you know, cause there is like a complexity to like rosin that like, you can't really put your, you know, the data, you can't really see it in the data, but you know, it's there. There's like something really flavorful when and rosin hits hard too. Yeah. It hits hard. You know, you just have more compounds, a fuller spectrum of compounds, which is, I think, you know, does something to your CB1, CB2 receptors, whatever up in your brain, you know, that, you know, hits you in a different way. We're not even sure of yet. Yeah. There's so much new science that's yet to be discovered. So, you know. Yeah. We got a bunch of receptors and we're still figuring out how they all work together. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. And what terpene, and then the terpene matrix with this terpene and how those things affect it synergistically. And so, yeah, a lot of really amazing, cool stuff that we're just learning and still discovering new cannabinoids. Like, dude, with the, you know, now with these hemp conversions and things like that, I mean, I just feel like there's a new cannabinoid I see out and they're in gas stations and wherever in the Midwest. But I have a feeling the Farm Bill next month, which might come out around the time this episode airs, is going to change some of that. Yeah. You know, I mean, I think, because I'm seeing that too. It's like, you know, there's all these different versions of THC and it's like they're not natural.
Yeah.
They're,
yeah, conversions. Some of them are, synthetically derived and all sorts of crazy stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting. And yeah, I think we got to be like a little careful on, what we're doing and how we're putting things out, and try to keep it
what we're putting in our bodies.
Mama nature freaking, put out in the plant in the first place in those ratios. So.
Right. And I don't think there's anything wrong. Personally, my opinion on the conversions like Delta 8, I don't think there's anything wrong with it if you're using good starting material and you're using the process correctly. Mm-hmm. It's if you're just taking pure shit and you're basically converting that and calling it Delta 8. I don't think you're going to get a good end product necessarily.
Yeah. And there's some powders and catalysts, that are used in some of those conversions, and just making sure it's clean and, a safe product for the consumer at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of pure THCA, to ingest pure THCA. It doesn't get you high. It doesn't get me high, but it, you get
the medicinal benefits.
I get the medicinal benefit of it. Yeah. I have ulcerative colitis, and it's just, it's a game changer, I think.
Nice.
Yeah. And Delta 8, I love Delta 8. It's conversion. I love Delta 8 for sleep.
Yeah.
And it's a fifth the strength of, Delta 9 THC.
Yeah. It's got a, kind of because CBD, it's just like, you don't really feel anything, but so for some of my family members that are like kind of new to the scene, I'm like kind of give them a little Delta 8, and it's like just kind of in between, like kind of the starter stoner.
Well, what I really like is CBG.
Yeah.
I really like CBG. I like smoking CBG even. I haven't found really good tasting CBG yet, but I really like the relaxing effect of CBG, where CBD kind of like just makes me tired. I don't get a lot out of just smoking good CBD flower, although I've tasted some really good CBD flower in joints. CBG, I've yet to taste any. So if anybody out there is watching and they have some good CBG genetics that tastes amazing, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. I agree. That's, one of the cool things that you guys are doing, and just, bringing these kind of alternative cannabinoids, breeding them up, having good terpene profiles. Cause like you said, CBD generally was hemp and it sucked. Yeah. And now there's CBD varieties out there that taste like sour diesel and look beautiful. And like, you're like, holy shit, man.
And there's actually a market for the genetics. I think the CBD, I think there's a market for everything, for the flower, for the genetics, for all of that, like good high-end CBD flower that's smokable. Like there's a huge market of people that if it tastes great and they had access to it and they knew about it, they would buy it.
Bro. Yeah. I mean, tobacco is one thing, but yeah, if you can smoke more of a medicinal herb, and you don't get high or a little relaxed, just like you're smoking a square of freaking Newport, whatever, but it's way healthier for you. Like, why wouldn't you, So I think there's we can talk conspiracy and big tobacco and all that stuff later, but I'm sure they're a little scared, or also trying to get in the game,
Natural menthol CBG. There you go.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I mean, those are things that can be bred in for sure. I've seen menthol come out a lot in cannabis. We used to cull most of the menthol stuff, because I feel like menthol isn't necessarily a desirable characteristic. So, because it can throw off all kinds of other stuff.
Interesting. So is that just a terpene?
I don't think, I think it's more in line with a thiol than a terpene, but it could be terpene specific. Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah. We'd need to identify COAs, because we just usually, it's not like I'm looking at the COA and pulling them. I'm just pulling them because I'm like,
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. More analytics, more standards. Cause what are we testing? 20 cannabinoids and 44 terpenes. Like it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Well, and not all terpenes are created equal. So you can have one that's in high concentration that basically that you don't taste very much of, whereas something in a small concentration is super potent and pungent.
Yeah. And we're seeing that in a lot of the extracts we do. And, the more we can preserve the monos through our process, they're minor, but they make a big difference in how everything tastes versus we can tell if we added a little bit more heat to the press or this, that, and the other thing, it's just like night and day as far as flavor goes.
You want to talk about the jar tech a little bit?
Basically the simple rudimentary way is just taking live rosin, and you want to basically to put anything in a vape, you need it decarboxylated. So getting the oil to the right consistency, the more THCA you leave in your product in a vape, the more poorly it's going to function. So we want to, decarboxylate that oil while preserving the terpenes. Like that's kind of the art in it, right? So, with jar tech, take the rosin, put it in the jar, heat it up slowly. Some people heat it up fast. You know, you have your own kind of recipe as a chef, you would know, you know, just
sure.
certain things, certain heat,
It's all
certain pressure.
proprietary
Yeah,
stuff that
totally. You know,
figured
so,
out.
you know, kind of figure that out. But
It's pretty amazing.
yeah, that's what I mean. You know, it's like the building blocks are still there from like the old school methods we're doing, especially on the wash and things like that. But, you know, just little, you know, and these are things that are pretty common, I think, as far as, you know, you talk to, you know, people that work in, you know, the chemistry industry or science and, you know, work in different types of extraction methods. They're like, oh yeah, that's super simple and makes total sense, but it's still relatively new to cannabis as we kind of bring new processes on.
Yeah, I mean, holy water. I don't know if you remember holy water. Back in 2013, we when I was with Loud Seeds, or we had Loud Seeds, we brought that to Denver. We had 2 booths, and we entered holy water with the holy water guys. Big shout out.
Yep, Mikey and the crew. Yeah,
yeah. They did not know how to judge it, and they apologized because it was amazing. And they had given me a bunch of samples, and I had a rig with an e-nail and was literally pouring out hits to everybody. Yeah. You know, and that was like, some of that stuff was like 30% terps.
Yeah. Yeah. That stuff. Yeah. That was freaking amazing what they came up with back in the day, and definitely, you know, set the trend of the HTE and all that good stuff. But yeah, totally. when it first came out, yeah, it was a game changer.
It was a game changer. Now there's definitely other things that are amazing as well. But yeah, it's funny, all these stages we've gone through to get to where we're at now.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's what's exciting about, you know, keeps us, I think, all charged up for the futures. New genetics, new strains, new profiles, new tech, all that. I think
we've figured out a lot of the tech. Now it's like, okay, let's get the genetics dialed in, and then they may come out with new tech in the future.
That's kind of really what we would talk about that internally. Like, what's the new tech? Is there a new thing coming out? And it's just like, what we're all excited about is like, what are the new profiles? Like, you know, like we were talking earlier, just, you know, what are you breeding that, you know, can finish a little quicker as a different profile? Cause we're all freaking sick of GMO and, you know, all kind of the normal hash strains. Totally.
So what do you think the new flavors are for hash? The big washer's going to be, I mean, I think I seen the banana conda, banana Oreos, some of those banana lines.
Yeah, the banana lines are definitely, you know, that one, like, definitely fan favorite. We've been running different, you know, banana creams, banana bunches and stuff for the last couple of years. And, you know, those are the ones that always win the awards. Or, you know, like they just have a, you know, you look at the analytics too, just a different terpene profile. So, you know, I'm seeing some more oranges. I haven't seen like citrus really come into play. So I'm curious if we can get, like I said, like super lemon haze, not that, you know, just different citruses.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Doesn't really wash that well, but is it possible
to breed it in? Yeah.
Or is it the specific terpenes that give the resin the structure that it has, you know, to where you're looking at the trichome heads? And
that's a big part of it.
It's hard to say.
We've been really kind of also geeking out on trichome morphology and just like the different trichome structures and what makes a washer and, you know, the bulbous head and, you know, how thick is the cuticle, and will the cuticle just get crushed by the ocean water and all the resin just washes through the bag versus, you know, just one that has like the right head, the right neck, stem, all that structure.
What is that, if you don't mind sharing, or is that?
I mean, you know, we don't have like
you're still working on it.
Yeah, we're definitely studying it. Unfortunately, the market is slow, and that costs a lot of money to do like a really good research program and grow out a bunch of strains and really get good trichome morphology data.
Right.
But we have hunches of what's making washers, and we're, you know, keeping that in mind with, you know, our farm partners and things like that. So
I got a whole chapter in the book that's coming out later this year on breeding cannabis.
Nice.
And there's a whole chapter on, and I'm trying to get as much data as I can. We're in the final stages of the book, but I feel like it's such an important thing. And it's kind of like the future of breeding is all, not all of it, but there is a good chunk of it that's like, how do we breed for extraction?
Yeah. I mean, you know, depending on the method, I think, you know, because like I said, with hydrocarbon, you can pretty much put anything good in and you're going to get a good product out.
Right.
With, you know, ice water hash, certain sifts, certain, you know, you can talk about crazy extraction methods using sound and all that fun stuff. But, you know,
dude, like electrostatic.
Electrostatic.
Electrostatic is a new one that I don't think a lot of people even know about. But it's almost like old school, new school.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we did an entry for that in the Emerald Cup. It's very hard to scale, but a really cool process to see and do, you know?
Well, so there's the way with the glove where they're
that's what we did. Yeah, with the gloves.
Thing,
yeah,
and then
totally.
you brush off the glove. That's, it seems like it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. But, you know, like I said, like at some point, somebody's going to, you know, like the hair straighteners at the beginning, like somebody might figure out how to scale it with some crazy, you know, frickin' scientific magnet frickin' thing or something, you know? Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. Right. And all the heads just come out and stick to it.
How cool would that be?
Yeah.
Where you can turn the magnet on and off.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Totally. So, yeah, I mean, you know, those are a lot of things that we've been tracking. You know, nitrogen's interesting. Some people have messed around with that. Haven't really cracked the code, but that's one I've, you know, when we were kind of first pitched on some nitrogen tech, it was like, we're going to bring a big giant air gas truck full of liquid nitrogen out to the farm. And we're basically just going to frickin' blast everything with liquid nitrogen. And we're going to harvest all the heads, take all the heads, and you just leave the farm with, instead of with all the biomass that we end up tossing at the end of the day, all the post-ran stuff, all that waste material, stems and leaves and et cetera, all we leave the farm with was just heads and trichomes, you know? So,
totally.
So there's some interesting methods out there, I think, that will figure out which one's real and which one's...
I think that makes a lot of sense, though. I think whether it's using that method of extraction, but field extraction, where you're extracting on the field to a degree where you're not having to leave and put the stuff in a huge warehouse. Super
inefficient. You know, we got freezer trucks and freezer containers all over the goddamn state. It's like, if we could just have the trichomes, because that's the juice, that's what we're going for as extractors, you know, that would certainly be the way.
Most people don't realize how expensive it would be to refrigerate a 100,000 square foot warehouse.
Yeah. It's
just the cost of
it's not cheap. Cool. And talk about when the power goes out and, you know, a freezer goes down or your truck breaks down on the side of the road and all your material turns to freaking mush. It's
scary.
It's a rough one. Yeah. Totally.
Redundancies.
Yeah.
Life's about redundancies, I think.
Yeah. Got to have a lot
having
of
those in place, but you learn from your mistakes too. And it only takes a few of those mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we made everyone in the book. So yeah, we'll keep making them, sure. But
Me too. I'm the same way. I feel like I've learned from a lot of mistakes. That's kind of my growing process.
Have to, man. We wouldn't be here if we didn't, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Especially as you start getting into scale. It's better to make your mistakes early on than to make your mistakes. Small mistakes are much easier to recover from than big mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And there's certainly a lot more consequence now than ever before. So yeah, we've learned to, we've made that mistake too, and learn to start like small batch pilot and just make sure everything's right before we go into big production runs.
Totally. Yeah, seed reversals, doing reversals, making sure you have redundancies for those. Those are always important when you're making seeds, is like having some sort of redundancy if you're making feminized seeds, because what if that reversal doesn't happen? And then you've got all these plants that are in veg that need pollen when they're in flower.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's a lot of things that can go wrong if you're not planning for it. You're going to end up getting nipped, that's for sure. Totally.
So what kind of products you got here today to share with us?
Let's see, man. I brought you a couple vapes. This one is the Jetty solventless. It's Amarello. This one's in a different package because it's OCal certified. I don't know if you know OCal, but basically we can't say anything's USDA organic in cannabis. So the state, love them or hate them, but they came up with a program that mimics comparable to the USDA organic program. It's actually a little more strict. There's a couple pesticides on there that aren't even on the USDA organic list. So
that's good.
It's a good thing. Yeah. And, our farm partner, it kind of starts with them, our farm partner, Coastal Sun. I mean, they've been working on regenerative soil and organic practices for a long time. They have a blueberry farm that is organic, USDA organic certified on their farm. So they're in the practice of kind of doing that and all that upkeep and just kind of, using all sorts of natural pest mitigations and all that good stuff. So they're in the habit of doing that. So they got certified, and in that program, manufacturers can get certified. If you're using solvents and stuff, you can't get certified, but in a non-solvent process, you can. So we got the OCal certification. So now we're slowly switching all the lines to like basically comparable to USDA organic. So that's why this one's in the white package to kind of, it's differentiating it. We're just going to market with it, but it's as organic as it can be, you know, or beyond organic, really. I mean, it's regenerative. It's amazing. So, you know, I know really with our solventless line, we just want it to be as clean as possible. Like nothing touched it but ice cubes and water in the process. And,
really cool.
you know, it's just a really awesome process and a really good program. Like I'm just generally what I eat. I try to eat organic. I try to, you know, stay on the healthier side.
I try
of
to
life.
eat mostly organic.
Yeah, it's gnarly the shit they put in food, dude. So
seriously,
and
I mean, if you're eating bananas, it might be okay, but other stuff, you know, it's like lettuce.
Yeah,
any sort of greens.
Yeah,
you should be eating organic.
Yeah, totally.
Berries, another one. That's another one. If you're eating berries, you probably should be eating organic.
Like the wine industry or grape industry is like the biggest consumer of mycobutanol like on the planet. Like spraying Eagle 20 all over everything, you know, and then we're eating it, you know. So
Hamel, on the other hand, they're in Sonoma and they are biodynamic and they do not use any of the bad stuff. And I really like that. You know, I drink a little wine now and then, but Hamel is amazing. I think there's a bunch of amazing.
There's some heady folks out there doing it the right way, but you know, the big box people are just crushing freaking pesticides everywhere, monocropping, you know. It's another thing these guys do is they're, you know, rotating crops and things like that. So it's just not monocropping. It's a lot of work.
I mean, packaged food, if you're looking at, you know, packaged food stuff that's pre-made, most of it is made from, I wouldn't say great quality ingredients most of the time.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of like, you know, our way, and just, you know, I think we just all want to live like a good, healthy life. I believe food is medicine. I believe cannabis is medicine, and
whether you believe it is or not.
Yeah. Want to make it as clean as possible. And, you know, the OCal certification just adds a little, you know, we can differentiate our product that way. There's a lot of other rosins out there, you know, where it's a little more costly. We got to pay the certification fees. It's a lot more logging and cleaning and things like that in between the processes. But, you know, we just want to give that to the consumer, like at the end of the day.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of all your stuff. You always give me really good stuff.
Yeah, this is another Jetty solventless cart. And then here we're doing a little tasting flight, which is pretty cool. So it's live rosin. We're doing like these little half grammers. Yeah. Kind of like a flight of beer, you know? So you get to taste all the, you know, some of our favorite flavors, things like that. So just some really nice cold cure, good stuff.
A lot of fun. And I feel like a half gram goes a long ways for a lot of people. Like me, I do cold start when I do dabs. I do cold start. I use small amounts. I like tasting terps. I like flavor. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I mean, I like the effect too. Don't get me wrong. The effect is important, but I also like flavor, especially I might take 5 or 6 small dabs. It's great to have different flavors.
Variety is the spice of life, right? So yeah, we're just trying to offer that. And that was, you know, as far as like, it seems simple, but like metric and compliance and the bullshit to put 4 different SKUs in one package.
Right.
Freaking nightmare, but
becomes a big issue.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yep. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just we kind of wanted to offer something. So it's 2 grams total, half grams. They're in these cool little like pop vac jars, which actually like vacuum seal themselves. So really good for terpene preservation. So
right. And is there a lot of diversity between each product, or you use similar ones? Or
no, I mean, there's, you know, we have all the profiles underneath, but yeah, like there's like an orange, there's a papaya, there's, you know, something that's a little on the sweeter side, a little more on the gassy side. So we tried to be, you know, as diverse as possible. But that said, that's where like, I'm hoping your breeders come up with even more diversity in the terpene game.
Absolutely.
You know?
So what are the most popular flavors right now that you guys are experiencing?
You know, it's like, what do we like and what are we smoking on? And like, what is like the general consumer and the data kind of tell you? It's vastly different. I think kind of like what the heady crew and like really heavy users are, you know, on. And, you know, I think the traditional market always moves a little bit faster. So there's new strains out that, you know, I'm getting, but we can't even commercialize them or get them out. So it's crazy to me. I mean, not on the solventless side, but, you know, Fatso is one that kind of sells really good for us. I mean, GMO, as much as we all like see it everywhere. I'm pretty sick
on that GMO tip.
It is, yeah, it's similar. Like they're all kind of similar profiles. We did a cereal milk recently that's sold like crazy.
How's that one washed though?
It's not the greatest, but we got it to hit numbers.
Nice.
Yeah. So I think there's certain phenos of it that will.
I got a Xerios cross that I think would work really well, but the same thing, it doesn't yield crazy, but the flavor profile is
and that's kind of it, you know, we'll like make exceptions if it hits a different bucket on the terpene profile, you know? So, you know, as long as kind of our average yield when we're washing like a bunch of strains in a month kind of hit those numbers, we're okay. But, yeah, it's really depending on like what the flavor of the month is. But yeah, like I said, I mean, you know, you're talking about Xerios and, you know, the new banana crosses and things like that are like things that we can't get commercially yet. So the consumer's used to kind of what I feel like smoking a year or 2 years ago sometimes.
Right. LCG.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. You know, the data and, you know, when you look at like BDSA and like these big kind of like, you know, data aggregate companies there, it's like Blue Dream still holds strong in California. It's freaking crazy.
Totally. I made Blue Dream crosses last year that I'm about to release.
Nice.
On the website. I think people like Blue Dream.
Yeah.
People like Blue Dream, and whether I like it or not, I mean, as far as like, I think it holds its place. I think it's something I can enjoy every once in a while. I think the terps are cool. Mm-hmm. The effect is just very subjective. Do you like the effect of it? You know, because it's more mild.
Yeah, it's lightweight for sure.
It tastes good. Like the extract tastes great.
Yeah, and it was like always a fan favorite for like cultivators back in the day. But I think we all just blew it up and grew so much of it freaking 10, 15 years ago. It's just like
totally
so beat. And I just, it
that
blows
and
me.
Crack.
Yeah. It blows me away that, you know, it's still trending. And like, you know, when you look at just kind of it's a different consumer, you know, where like probably your viewers and like a lot of people we talk to are just like so inside it and like, what's the new strain and what's the new flavor? But, you know, you kind of look at what's selling consistently and pulling off, you know, retailer shelves, dispensary shelves. It's like, yeah, it's Blue Dream and
people know Blue Dream.
Yeah, totally. It's crazy. You know, Sour Diesel and, you know, like just kind of the old classics. It's funny.
Yeah. Green Crack. I wonder how that's going to go over in metric.
Yeah, totally.
The name.
Totally. Yeah, we've changed the name on that one. Even when I had dispensary freaking 10, 15 years ago, you know, it was like Green Bubble and this and that. Yeah. People just were kind of offended by the name. But man, that one like was another crazy one. It finished in 6.5 weeks. It was freaking loud. It was
Green Crack.
Yeah, totally.
So I had a Green Crack that I could grow it side by side with Blue Dream, and it grew almost identical. Like as far as like it was a 10+ weeker.
Yeah.
So 70 to 77 days.
Okay.
But the Green Crack was super strong. You would smoke it, but you would build a tolerance to it almost immediately.
Really?
But like if you're smoking it all the time, you give it to your friends, you're knocking your friends out, and they're like, "What the fuck is this?" But like it was like a really short high.
Yeah, that was it too. Yeah, my buddy had a pheno of it in Lake County. He crushed it with it. It was beautiful, and yeah, it was 6.5 weeks. Finished so quick, which was like
pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was a crusher for many, many years. He did great with that one.
Nice. Yeah, I think bringing back old flavors is another thing that's going to happen.
Yeah,
you know, because I think we still have access to either seeds or people have preserved the genetics, the cuts.
Yeah, and there's. You know, we recently got the brand into the East Coast, into New York, and, you know, it's a slow rollout there. But like the OGs that have been there for a while and like, you know, the Chem and like the kind of old East Coast strains, people still are hoarding those and have those beans, have those genetics they've been sitting on. So it's exciting. And, you know, it's like, man, I kind of feel like Sour got lost out here for a while, but like,
it's in such high demand right this
couple guys like with these little closet, you know, little small warehouses that are like, just still have like that, you know, great East Coast sour, man. It's pretty cool.
Before we rolled the cameras, we were talking a little bit about Hop Latent, and I feel like sour was kind of the vector to a degree of Hop Latent, or one of them. And Sour Diesel was amazing, and most people haven't been able to, lately have not been able to experience the Sour Diesel like we used to get, and I think a lot of it is due to Hop Latent, and there's viruses, and also just age. Yeah. You know, some of these genetics are so old. If you think a lot of that stuff was early 90s, like it's not like it was today. Like the 91 is still pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's it, man. And that's what's cool about what you guys are doing here, I think, with that TC stuff and, you know, being able to bring it back and revitalize those old school genetics is going to be super cool.
Well, and being able to use, for us using them for breeding, you know, we have the nursery model too, but I think really using them for breeding and creating new stuff. And I think we'll be able to pivot in any direction the market goes, because it's not always about what I like. Because I like, you know, as a chef too, I don't always cook the food that I love, but I love cooking for people, and I love making genetics for people. And also I want to bring the market what the market wants, and everybody has different needs and wants. And, you know, I think it's really interesting kind of the way the market is shaped up. We're in this place where people want new stuff every 2 months. Well, that's not going to be like that forever. I think there'll be always a interest in that stuff, but I think a lot of the stuff will stabilize. We'll find stuff that's really amazing, and then companies will settle on that as their own proprietary thing.
Yeah.
So, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm also, you know, in the sense where a company can do that, but also where a home grower can grow his own, just like how a microbrewer can grow or brew beer.
Sure.
Home grower can grow his own. And, you know, I think the future's wide open to a degree. It's scary on some notes, you know, especially if you're in metric or you know, rec.
Yeah. We're fully there, and it is scary. It's a tough place to operate, man. It's, you know, I think whether it's the economy, whether it's oversaturation of this, that, and the other thing, it's tough. You know, there's a lot of companies laying people off, and just, you know, kind of hitting this other downturn in the market, and people aren't going into retailers like they used to. And, you know, part of it, like we can, again, like taxation, things like that, you know, we can kind of get into that.
Taxation, over taxation.
Yeah. It's just like let us be competitive with the traditional market, and, you know, we'll be able to get more product out to the people, and, you know, everybody wins. And then again, where does the tax money go? I still see freaking tons of homeless people out, and just like the roads are shit. And it's that's a whole can of worms, but, yeah.
Well, you're in Oakland. Oakland's scary.
Yeah.
Oakland's scary to a degree. I mean, compared to how it used to be, and I've been in Oakland my whole life, and I just don't like Oakland anymore in the sense that it's dangerous.
Yeah. It's freaking wild there, dude.
Yeah.
It's getting wilder and wilder. And yeah, I mean, there's, you know, we've been broken into and robbed plenty of times. And, you know, I tell people that come, it's just like, yeah, like, you know, it's not a matter if, but when your window's going to get smashed, make sure you take your backpack out. Like, you know, all these noobs coming up, and, you know, coming up from wherever, even San Diego, LA, or just people visiting. I'm like, dude, do not leave anything in your car. Like, it's going to happen, you know? So, yeah, it's wild. I mean, just stores, just broad daylight, you know, tons of retailers
cars
getting
and stores,
hit, dude. Like, yeah.
I know the lady that was on the news that got carjacked, and they ended up catching the guys.
Oh, that's
Skyline Boulevard.
Yeah.
She had cameras, and they used the cameras to identify the thieves that carjacked her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, that's Skyline Boulevard, and that's like the nice part of Oakland.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't matter where. You got to have your head on the swivel out there, dude, for sure.
Absolutely. But it's still a beautiful city. I mean, I still love Oakland.
Yeah, it is. It's great. You know, it's home. It's been a great hub and like very welcoming city with cannabis. I think like in the 215 days when we were kind of operating then, and, you know, I took plenty of raids, whether that be in like Nevada County, and we started the company in San Diego, and it was super conservative there. And, you know, like they were just coming after everybody. Like we had a small grow. My brother had a dispensary. We converted it to a delivery. He had a 4-lighter, dude, tiny little grow, 5,000 scripts, like a whole collective backing a 4-lighter. It was crazy. And they still came in, raided him, charged him with a felony, you know, and had to get a wobble misdemeanor, all this stuff. But it's just like, you know, it was night and day. So, you know, Oakland was always friendly to cannabis, and, you know, had an ordinance for extraction. It's like, you know,
I think a great Oakland home for us. Did a lot of things right when it came to cannabis legalization, from medical transitioning into rec, and the way they wanted to do the green zone. They looked at the PG&E bills, and they basically based the green zone on the PG&E structure.
They let people come into compliance. Like you could operate there, you know, kind of under the medical guidelines, and then they let you come into compliance, which was cool. You know, it gave everybody that was old school that wanted to give it a shot, you know, which was nice.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, Oakland's, kind of the birth of a lot of this stuff.
Heck yeah. Yeah. No, it's been the hub, and just, you know, everybody coming down off the mountain. Like
it was the place to go.
Like that's where you went. Yeah.
Well, and then Harborside going big, you know, I think Harborside was like the real big, as far as also the focus that the government had on dispensaries, because they were pushing the limit on what you could do, and they were making all kinds of money, and they were getting scrutinized, and
they were the model, you know, and like, as a grower and extractor, to get your product on that shelf back in the day was like, you know, you felt like you made it finally, you know?
Oh, I have stories. They were a pain in the ass to deal with to a degree though. And they didn't pay you right away. I like places where you go in the dispensary, they'd slap the cash down, and it was like a transaction where it wasn't like you got a little slip of paper. Yeah. And 2 weeks later, they're like, come pick your product back up.
Yeah, you didn't have to. Everybody was balking to get in there. But yeah, I had a dispensary in San Diego, and it was very much like that, where, you know, we'd pay somebody on the spot, and
Yeah.
We called them vendors. You guys were vendors back in the day, and come in with your duffel bags and bunch of different packs, bunch of different flavors, and pick 2 or 3 of the best peas and pay you, send you on your way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Harborside would buy some decent quantities of stuff too. And it's amazing how much product they moved through there and how much money they made back in the day.
Dude,
it was
that place
just
cranked, dude.
It was an amazing model.
It was. Yeah. It was one of a kind, first of its kind. And, you know, it's interesting the way it all shook out now, but yeah, I mean, you got to give them props for kind of breaking the mold and, you know, helping, you know, the industry move forward.
Well, and then even like, so we can talk about Purple Heart. There was Purple Heart back in the day. I don't know if you went to Purple Heart at all. I was a big fan.
I was down south back then, but you know, I knew of it for sure.
Yeah. And so they weren't Harborside. They were doing their own thing, and they were, but they were all about helping people out. They had really knowledgeable people working there, which was great. They had a good buyer.
Yeah, I didn't I wasn't up here that much. Like, we would just come up and kind of just basically would coming up and grabbing, you know, this, like I said, it was the meeting place. Everybody would come off the mountain. I'd come grab a bunch of packs for SoCal dispensaries and stuff like that. So didn't spend too much time in the clubs, you know, up here, but certainly a hub and an epicenter for, you know, a lot of transaction and trade, which was always fun.
Yeah. When did you get into hash making and all the stuff that became Jetty?
You know, like I said, Jetty's been around for 10 years now. In October, it'll be a 10th year anniversary, which I'm stoked on because we're still here and a lot of people aren't. So at a dispensary, 2009, 10, that got shut down by the feds sometime in 2011. Civil, they gave us a letter, said, basically my landlord, they're like, we're going to seize this property unless you kick out your marijuana tenant.
Yeah.
So gave us a 45-day to cease and desist. Sucks. We moved all that to a delivery I kind of mentioned, a delivery model. I had a couple grows spotted up around San Diego. And, but you know, when I had the dispensary, it was like talked about like our concentrate shelf, like, you know, being just, you know, some full melts and just bubble hash and things like that. And then towards the end, like, 10, 11, something like that, you know, you'd start to see like oils. You're like, damn, what the hell is this? Like amber oil. And sometimes it'd be poop soup, like real dark, gross shit. But we really didn't know how to smoke it and what to do with it yet. And then, you know, I saw like a really shitty vaporizer pen. Like it was like with glycol and the cotton wick.
The Gen 1 vaporizer
pen. It was so terrible. Bad. Like it was just terrible. But I
still have my Gen 1.
Yeah. I was like, you know, this is fucking cool and it's going to probably be something, but it's not something yet. But it really sparked my interest.
Right.
And, you know, really seeing like our concentrate shelf at the dispensary go from like, you know, a little slice and a little bit of market share, a little bit of sales, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger and more variety and more offerings. And, you know, it was like weird, like honey buds and this and that, and like all these different, you know,
moon rocks,
all that, like fun stuff like people were doing. And it started evolving. And then, you know, a lot of like the glass blowing homies were like, yeah, we don't really blow like a fucking bong or a pipe anymore. Everybody wants these rigs, dude. Like I'm just selling these rigs, and people are coming in the dispensary asking for rigs and nails and bangers and this and that, you know?
Right.
And, you know, the method of smoking and vaporizing and dabbing really kind of took on, and we're just like, wow, this is like becoming a huge category. And this is like, there barely was any brands back then, man. It was just like strain names. There was a couple like mom and pop cookie companies that were like edible brands, but there wasn't really much branding then either.
Well, there was 2 big glass companies that I remember is Hitman Glass and Silica.
Yep, totally.
And those 2 brands kind of had the most of the market share.
Yeah, they definitely did. And like, I think, Hitman, Dougie, and like that crew definitely had a lot to do with kind of like evolving the method of smoking, which really helped evolve the
Making
extract.
It classy.
Yeah, totally.
Dougie's got a way. He's an amazing guy. You know,
totally.
Through Chalice, and
yeah,
he's done. Yeah, he keeps reinventing himself, and he's back east doing some events now too.
Yeah,
and pretty awesome.
Yeah, kudos to like all them old school folks, man. They really like helped pioneer and pave the way for what it is now, and it was really cool to see that evolution, like I said. But yeah, really, that's kind of how we got into it. Is like got shut down by the feds. What are we going to do? Let's try to find a safe way to do extraction, because everybody's either blowing up their garages by open blasting, doing stupid shit, or getting like these crazy charges, which was like, I don't know, like the same charge you'd get if you had a meth lab, intent to manufacture or something. I can't remember what it was, but a bad felony. So we thought, oh, CO2 is safer. So my partner, 2 partners back then, but you know, one came in, he was kind of had some real estate money, sold, and, you know, basically is like, yeah, I'll throw down for a CO2 machine. And we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. So that was like kind of the first thing. And
was this pre like Eden Labs CO2 or was it?
It was right around the same time. That was the Apex CO2.
Yeah.
So I was like, those were the two. I think the first CO2 rig I saw was an Eden thing. And we had a grow in a 2-story building, but the tenant was like leasing it to all cannabis people.
So Apex had terps still, whereas the Eden was like crude, and you get like the orange peanut butter.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Some really weird consistencies would come out of that, and like just how waxy it was. And the high pressures and the heat.
Like
it was
mostly wax.
Yeah, totally. And you're like, oh, I got a huge yield, and it's like freaking 30%. You know what I mean? It was certainly, you know, not the best method of extraction, but once we winterized it, and it worked really well, even though it didn't have good terp profile, but it got to a good consistency for a pen. Nice. And that kind of really got us, like, we were kind of just focused on extracts in general, but having that CO2 rig kind of got us, you know, more into selling more vapes and more pens, because that's the only thing we really make from that machine. So it kind of evolved, I guess, you know, naturally from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, and that was 10 years ago. And then you started out just doing CO2, and that evolved. You did that for 5 years, maybe? Yeah,
probably, you know, it was a couple years of CO2, and then, you know, kind of went into the ethanol distillate thing, hydrocarbon live resin, because we had to wait for like licensing and things like that. So, you know, every couple of years, it seemed like we evolved to a different type of extraction.
Awesome.
Yeah.
As the market changed, you were kind of on the cutting edge of what's new and trying it out.
Tried to be, you know, like a lot of it, like I said, was just kind of, we may have pigeonholed ourselves into a few methods that, you know, looking back on it, it got us where we are today. But, you know, the good thing is we never like overbuilt for anything. Like there's some mega CO2 labs or mega ethanol labs that are out there that, you know, basically are getting sold off for parts right now because no one's using those methods. So we were at least pivoting every couple of years, knowing there's going to be a new trend or new tech coming out, you know?
Yeah. Those are like the cool tubes.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I mean, the quest was to really make something that tasted as good or better than the flower, you know? So that was kind of always the mission and why we evolved, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Would you like to try some banana Skittles?
Yeah, dude. Nice.
Some fun stuff. So that's banana OG times banana punch, then back to the Skittles.
Nice.
And pheno hunted by my good friend's House of Cultivar in Seattle.
Okay.
So they're doing all kinds of fun stuff with extraction up there. And I'm a big fan of the live resin with this plant, but it's very open bud structure. I don't know if you remember Williams Wonder, where it was like,
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Where the bracts really stuck up in foxtail, kind of like sour how foxtails, but even a
I like that structure, man. I don't know. Sometimes, you know, like the nice, tight, pretty nug is cool, but like, I like it when it does its own thing, you know, and kind of like comes out all weird.
Not bad, right?
Yeah. I definitely get the Skittles in it.
Yeah. It's skittly. It's got banana. I feel like it's... The flower actually smells kind of pungent, but you don't get the pungency with the extract. So
let me smell it. Yeah, it's got a little more Skittles to it for sure.
Yeah, and I like it. Skittles structure is always bad. Like if you want to...
It's a hard one, like to get to wash well for us and hit numbers, but the bananas definitely will work good.
Yeah, there's a fine line with the
Skittles. There's a little
structure.
banana in there. I got more of the Skittles though.
Yeah,
for sure. It's nice.
Yeah, and the plant, when you squeeze some of the expressions, it's just straight like banana OG, like that really banana OG. And,
nice.
And then the banana punch, those plants get so big, so you can really see the different. Like if you look at the Skittles, you take the 3 plants because they definitely all have different structure. But when you're looking at the progeny, you can really see what was inherited from which parent.
That's cool, man. I don't spend nearly enough time in the grow room in the fields as I'd like to.
Yeah,
it's that's a cool thing about the whole, you know, how the extract scene's evolving and how we're you know, more in cahoots with the farmer and the producer and the cultivator than ever before, and just like, you know, breeding more for extraction and solventless genetics and stuff like that. There's just a lot more data sharing, and like, you know, we're looking at calyxes and we're looking at trichomes together, and it's fun, man.
Yeah, and breeding for specific types of extraction. It's like it's not like you're breeding for everything. It's not across the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So there's some fun new stuff. I think, yeah, that's the thing that excites me the most, is just what new strains are on the forefront, you know?
For sure. You know, I think lemon cherry and I think these gelato derivatives, they have their place.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I've seen over in New York, they're really happy with the piff.
Mm-hmm.
They're going hard with like some of the sativa varieties, these hazes.
Yep, totally.
I love it. I think that's great to have the diversity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always want to smoke a haze. I don't want to smoke a haze on this show necessarily. Done that before, and it's just like one of these joints. If it doesn't have a ceiling, man, it could just keep getting higher escalating. And higher. Yeah, totally. Some of them creep up on you too, so like you'll smoke it, and then it just keeps you getting you more high and more.
Yeah,
high.
We just don't see it out here, man. I wish there was more hazes available, and you know.
There's little markets like niche market, like Gold Seal in San Francisco. They do their
Congo,
Congo.
Yeah, that Congo's crazy, dude.
It's a good one. It's a good one, and I think that hop latent too for a while, and I'm not sure if they remediated it or not. But
yeah, we were, you know, we had kind of some friends of ours operating out of our facility, Oakland Extracts, and they were really like old school Oakland OGs, and big up to Tran. But yeah, they were rocking that gear for a while, always getting the Gold Seal Congo, and it was just, man, it had just such a cool profile. Loved it. Yeah,
gets you super stoned. It's strong. It's strong in effect. But that's one where I had a big bag of it, and over the period of a week, your body really starts to get used to it. And so even the strongest stuff you can build a tolerance to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and that's one thing, like if you're used to doing dabs or you're used to smoking, I feel like the difference between the two, if you switch to the other one.
Dude, yeah. I don't smoke flower for a while. I'm freaking ripped off a joint.
Totally.
It's nice.
Smoke some Skittles and all of a sudden you're ripped. Yeah. But yeah, whereas I'm the same way, whereas I've been mostly smoking flower lately. We've been going through we're doing a lot of selections. And so I'm always trying new stuff. So I'm always getting high for that for the most part. But then I go to take a dab, or I even just hitting, you know, doing one of these cold starts that I do. It's like I can get ripped off those pretty easily.
Heck yeah, totally feel that. Yeah, and even strain to strain, you know, just like the way you build tolerances is another thing I think we're just like learning more and more about. And
right.
You know, but yeah, I mean, I'll switch like smoking whatever OG the whole time, and then just switch to something that's you would think is lightweight and mellow, but just got that different terpene profile or whatever, hits you totally different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. When people ask me what my favorite thing to smoke is, it's like I like a lot of different things, but whatever the best is right now, because it's a fresh product, that's what I like. Yeah, and usually, like I'll be whatever I have that's the best is the one I want to smoke the most of, and I might have a bunch of different flavors, and then all of a sudden I get a bunch of this. I might smoke all of that before I go back into anything else.
Yeah,
just because I really enjoy it. I like the taste. I like the way it makes me feel, and
yeah, I'd say like gas, man. I don't know, being in San Diego and SoCal for like so long in the early days, it was just OG.
So did you see cat piss back in the day?
Oh yeah, totally.
So was the cat piss more like OG gas, or was it more like skunk, like roadkill skunk?
Skunk, yeah. It was more skunk vibe, little citrus to it than it was the other way. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, there was like the SoCal, there was the NorCal cuts, and everybody's arguing over what cat piss is. And my argument is that cat piss is a flavor profile. And I've seen it come up as expressions and stuff. A5, for instance, A5, the A5 haze.
I don't know that one.
Is definitely like it's
similar
cat piss.
Profile, yeah.
I mean it's cat piss, but it doesn't smoke as pissy and ammonia. It still has like, but on the nose, it is ammonia.
Yeah.
And that was cat piss was like skunky ammonia without the gas. It wasn't gas like OG or chem. It was like this foul, skunky ammonia, and it would stink up. A little tenth of a gram would smell the whole room up.
Yeah, I love those. Yeah, there was a couple guys like closet guys back in New York when I grew up that had like that funk, and it was just it was like I'd walk into like a bar or a crowded room, people would be like, "What the fuck? Who's smoking weed?" You know, and like you just don't
You don't see that
You
anymore.
don't see that anymore now.
Well, everybody smells like weed now,
Yeah,
too.
yeah, I guess so. Maybe we're all used to it. I don't know.
You go to the airport and I smell weed and I'm like, is that me? And then I realize it's somebody else.
Yeah, it's so nice to be able to go to airports and like not have to worry as much.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Everyone at the Oakland airport smells like weed.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I've seen people, go in and out of there and through TSA and they're looking at it, this bag of weed and put it back and send them on their way. You know, it's amazing.
So what do you see as the future of the industry?
Shoot. I wish I had the crystal ball for that one, dude.
Yeah, me too.
Hard to say, man. I mean, we're in like survival mode. I feel like a lot of the, regulated folks like ourselves are just trying to survive.
Well, you're still here. That's a good sign.
Still here.
I think
10 years. I mean, what's the future? I see just an actual, it was crazy. Like back in the day we were drug dealers and then it was like a movement and we're like fighting for just cannabis to be legal. And now it's like here and it's legal, but it's still in its infancy. Like federal government might be doing some rescheduling. Like that just came out, which is interesting.
I don't necessarily like it. They're scheduling it to a Schedule 3. Well, let's schedule tobacco as a Schedule 3 too. Yeah. That's my opinion. Like
fair
if you
enough,
want to do
but
that,
I don't want to be in the same category as heroin and freaking cocaine. So I'm glad it's moving out of Schedule 1. But
I agree with that.
This whole scheduling thing,
it's a little silly for cannabis. I mean, I think if we're going to do that, let's go ahead and schedule tobacco as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Because I think tobacco, in my opinion, is way worse for you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't get me high.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, switch the tobacco industry to like CBD flower. You know, everybody's gonna be mellow and just
totally. They're
feeling
not gonna be getting lung cancer.
Yeah, and not getting lung cancer. It's an expectorant. And, so there's a lot of benefits to doing something like that. Yeah, it's unfortunately the tobacco industry probably has too much money to lobby against going on any sort of schedule for the DEA.
Right. The last podcast I did, we talked, actually the one that's airing with Heston, we were talking about the lobbyists. Yeah. And, unfortunately there's not a lot of lobbyists for the home growers, for the small guys, small companies.
It's all about money.
It's all about money. And who has money is the big company.
Exactly. Yeah. And whether they're evil or not, I'm not going to speak to that, but a lot of them I don't think have the best intentions.
No, and I don't know if it's like it's not a good and evil thing for them. It's just money. They're looking at the money and, we can look at it as good and evil or whatever. Sure. And they're just worried about the bottom line. Like, how can we make the most amount of money? And that's not always the best approach in business.
No, people do fucked up shit to make the most amount of money. So
yeah, when you start focusing on money, you're willing to sacrifice things like that make your product quality, right? And it can go in any extreme. And
consumer safety, you know what I mean? Like you sacrifice that or knowingly spray something with a pesticide, it was cancer causing, but you're still going to put it on your product anyway because it's cheaper.
Totally.
So like that side of it's not great, but
no, it's not great. But there's always the thing is I feel like the truth comes out with that kind of stuff. The truth comes out. Yeah. So at the end of the day, people start recognizing the good brands and what they're doing and the efforts they're making towards it. And you get a following, and that builds up over time. That it takes years to build a brand properly. For people that think they're just going to start cultivating and open an extract company or a seed company and just right off the gate, it takes years to really do it right.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of these guys that just big MSOs open up, whatever, freaking 100,000 square foot indoor facilities all around the country. And there's nothing good coming out of there because it's not easy to do, man.
It's not easy. And it's way better to start off small and do it right.
Yeah. So as far as the future of the industry, I think it's going to become more normalized. I think, you're going to be able to go to hotels and, on the little mini bar menu, you're going to have your spliff too. And I think there's going to be just more access. I mean, will 7-Eleven be selling joints at some point? Probably in our lifetime,
I would hope.
Yeah. So, and there'll be craft scenes and different types of events and tastings and stuff like that. So I think I'm excited for that side of it and like it to normalize and people to consume more cannabis. Like I think is obviously going to be great for the world, but just surviving and, making sure the industry has some integrity at the end of the day, I think is going to be important and kind of like, keeps me going,
Right. So if you were to give yourself one piece of advice back when you started, looking back at yourself, you've been in the industry 1 or 2 years, what advice would you give yourself?
Man. A lot of lessons learned, I guess. I would say just go bigger, man. Like, don't be scared to kind of step out, you know, especially back in the day, it was like stick and move a little bit, you know, and just kind of like, we're scared to really go for it or really brand your product and stuff like that. But seeing other people that have come out with like interesting branding and just kind of like going for, you know, getting their stuff out there more, you know, like exactly what you guys are doing. A lot of these genetics guys and things like that, like the seeds guys have been doing it for a long time and pushing cannabis out into the world. And I think like going back, I just push more cannabis out into the world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's a good thing. I think it makes the world a better place.
Yeah, I think we all do. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember getting seed packs like way back when, and it was all sketchy, and you had to, you know,
dude,
send it to somebody's house and this and that. But you know, sketchy. Like they've been doing it forever and just like pushing it out, and just I think that's what I'd do more of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been an interesting process from where we were. You know, I was born in 78 or 77, so from 77 even. Now it's pretty wild, the cannabis industry, and still relatively new. And
yeah, it's young, dude. Yeah, we were talking about, I don't know who was talking about like comparing it to prohibition of alcohol back in the day to now.
It's so different.
It's different, dude. It's like there's way more regulation. There's, you know, all these governing, you know, there was no OSHA and shit like that back then.
Yeah, but
there was
four big companies out of prohibition that were allowed to brew beer. There's the big four.
Yeah, and they're still here.
Yeah, and they're still here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? But it wasn't until the 70s and until we had these microbrews coming online.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a lot. So yeah, I mean, I think it's come a long way. It's hard to really know what the future holds, but you know, and eventually just like trying to make good product and put it out there to the people, I think is the best thing we can do.
Totally. Well, man, it was really great having you on the podcast today. If somebody has a question on where they can find you guys, how can they get in touch with you guys? Where can they find you dispensary wise?
You know, I couldn't say. We're in a good amount of dispensaries in California. We're in New York. We're in Colorado. We're likely going to be in New Jersey by the end of the year.
MSO.
Yeah, I guess so. Small. I mean, I don't know if we are that, but you know,
well, you're in multiple states, so you are technically an MSO, but you're a good MSO.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, we're trying to get our product. So it's very like heavy touch. We're there, we're producing it in those markets, you know, with partners and stuff like that. So it's a hard thing. It's not like a gummy where you just give somebody a recipe and here you go. Here's my recipe, sugar, this, that, and the other thing, and a little bit of cannabis, and here's my product. So especially with solventless and stuff like that, it's real hands-on. So it's fun being in those markets. So in any of those markets, but you can check our website. That's got all the good stuff. Instagram got shut down last week, got back online, I think the other day. So kudos to the marketing team for getting that back on, because you know, it's not the first time we've been shut down, and that's just another annoying thing in the industry. We know will change eventually, but yes, we got Instagram back. So back online as well.
Nice. Really cool, man. Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it. Awesome stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, good work.
Yeah, great talking to you.
Heck yeah. Dude.